Hello everyone, welcome to the next lab of EC 573 Advanced Embedded Logic Design. In this lab, we are going to discuss the how to design the embedded system using the microblades via Vivado and SDK design flow. So, as discussed previously, to configure the Zinc SoC, you need to configure the hardware, which is the FPGA, software, which is the ARM processor. Okay, so you can have the STSOC based flow where entire thing is done by the tool, and you just write the C code along with the appropriate primas. Other option is to follow the hardware software co-design flow where you divide your applications into the hardware part, software part. You complete the hardware part in the Vivado by using the Verilogs, VHDL, System Verilog or the HLS, and you complete the hardware part using the C or C++ in the SDK, and then integrate them together like we discussed in the previous uh, theory lecture about the Zinc boot process, where you have the ELF file, FSBL, SSBL, and the board support package along with the hardware file, and you integrate them together to make it work on the your SoC board. So now you are well aware about the SDSoC design flow, and you know that in the SDSoC design flow, most of the things are taken care automatically. While in the Vivado design flow, you have a complete control on your design or the block diagram or the hardware block diagram. For example, in the Vivado design flow, you design your entire block diagram on your own by taking the blocks by blocks from your IP catalog. For example, this is the block for the ARM processor, which is the PS. This is the block BRAM memory inside the FPGA. This is the general purpose input output IO. It can be connected to say LEDs inside the FPGA, and then you write C code, which is converted into the ELF file, which is nothing but the set of instructions. These are stored into this off-chip DDR memory, and when you run the code, when you run the this your code on the board, your ARM processor will read the instruction from the DDR memory, will execute the instruction, and based upon the instruction, it will generate the appropriate signals. For example, if you want to read the data from this memory, you will generate the appropriate AXI transaction to read the data inside the processor, and you can display the data on the LEDs using the another AXI write transaction. So similarly, you can build a different type of block diagram. For example, this is the block diagram where we have the general purpose GPIO AXI for the buttons, switches, LEDs, and there is another type of RGB LEDs which is there on the Z board. Okay, so here you can see that this GPIO takes the AXI transaction as an input and then extract the data on display it on the LEDs if it's the output GPIO. If it is the input GPIO, it reads the content of your push buttons or the switches and then stores inside the register, and via the AXI read transaction you can read the data inside the register, and once you read the data inside the register, you can see that you can get to know the status of the corresponding button. Okay, so all this reading writing you can do using the ARM processor. Like for example, you can use the drivers of the corresponding GPIO to read from the appropriate register inside the GPIO. The same thing can be made more complex. So you can see that in addition to your GPIO, you have the additional AXI timer IP here. This is nothing but the IP which can be used as the up counter, down counter, or it gets triggered when the particular event happens. So it's a multi-purpose timer IP. So you can use that IP. For example, one possible applications of this block diagram is that whenever the timer reaches 0 or whenever the timer reaches its maximum value, it generates the interrupt, and at that interrupt you read the status of the push button and the switches, and then display some appropriate values on the LEDs. Okay, so that can be the appropriate value. Or at every 10 seconds or every 1 second, you change the color of this RGB LED from the red, green, blue, and so on. Okay. So, and this you can control it via writing the C code inside the ARM processor. And as we know that from the ARM processor, your C code will be converted into a set of instruction. And then if you want to say communicate with the timer, you need to use the driver of the timer. So that driver will convert your C code or the assembly language instruction into the appropriate AXI protocol, AXI write or read transaction, and will execute the corresponding communication with the each IP. Okay. So now, as we discuss, in case of the SDSOC, you don't need to worry about how your processor communicates with the IP, what drivers they use. Everything is done in the automated fashion. You don't have much control over the block diagram. While in case of the Vivado SDK design flow, you have the complete control over the block diagram and how the communications happens between the processor and the SDK. Okay. But the advantage with the SDSOC is that the programming of the FPGA, which is the Verilog part or the HLS part, and the programming of the processor, which is the your compiler GCC compiler part, is a part of a single software. So what does this mean? And this means that you can emulate your entire system in a single software, so that entire emulation is possible in case of the SDSOC. But when we have the Vivado SDK design flow, your Vivado is a separate software, SDK is a separate software, and you need to export your hardware design from the Vivado to SDK, and that limits the emulations what you can perform using this flow. Okay. Another issue is that in case of the ARM processor, if you go back to the ARM processor, your code is there inside the DDR memory, which is the off-chip memory. So you need to make sure that when you do it in the Vivado SDK design flow, if you want to do the emulations, you need to have the emulations of the DDR memory, which is not available. So to overcome this problem, what we are doing, we are replacing the ARM processor with the microblaze processor. So as we have discussed in our lecture, this microblaze processor is a soft processor. Soft processor means it is implemented using your resources inside the FPGA, like the lookup table and so on. So it is a soft processor, and for the microblaze, you don't need a off-chip memory. You can use the local memory, which can be a block RAM for the instruction and data. So that means once you can design this microblaze processor, and you can simulate this microblaze processor without need of accessing the board, like you do the test bench verification in the Vivado. In the same way, you can do the verification for this microblaze processor. Okay. So for example, this is the lab, one of the today's lab we are going to work on. So what we are going to do is that we are going to have the microblaze processor. Then we are going to use the two IPs. One is the timer IP and the GPIO IP. And what we are going to do, we are going to write something on this GPIO IP, and we will see that whether the data is available on the output of the GPIO. So what GPIO does, so when you do the AXI write transaction, the W data part of that AXI write transaction is extracted and is passed to the output. So this W data, in the worst case, it can be 32 bits. But when we'll use this IP, we'll configure this W data to be 4 bits. So those 4 bits of the W data will be captured and passed to the output. Okay, so we'll see that whether whatever the processor is writing is being available on this output. Then the next thing we can do is that we will try to use this AXI timer. So this AXI timer IP can be used as a up counter, it can be used as a down counter, or it gets triggered when some event happens, or it generates the pulse width modulated signal. So it is a multi-purpose IP. In our lab, we are going to configure this IP to count as a counter. Okay, and we are designing this counter as a 8-bit. Since it is an FPGA, we can configure everything inside the FPGA, so we'll design it as a 8-bit. So what we are going to do, this is the 8-bit counter, and it counts from 0, 1 up to 255, and we'll do the auto reload option. That means after it reaches the 255, it goes back to 0. And then we will see how to communicate from this microblaze to this IP and this IP. So before we, so basically we need to do two things. First thing we need to do is that we need to generate this clock and the reset signal. Okay, so basically we need to write a Verilog test bench to generate a clock and reset signal, because without the clock signal your microblaze cannot work. After we generate the clock and reset signal, your microblaze will start working. But to microblaze to work, you need to have your C code or the ELF file, which consists of the set of instruction, to be stored in this one. So what we are going to do, we are going to write in the SDK, we are going to write a C code. Okay, for the application, what we want to do, this C code will convert into the ELF file, and we copy this ELF file into this local memory, so that when we start the clock and we remove the reset, your microblaze has already started and it will start executing the instruction on this ELF file one by one. So it will perform the fetch, decode, and execute cycle. Okay. So the test bench is very simple, because you need to generate only clock and reset signal. So if you look at this entire diagram, you can see that if you see this entire diagram, this is entirely converted into the, will be converted into the Verilog code by the Vivado, and you can see that you have the clock, reset, and the GPIO 4-bit as a signal. So you can see that I have generated the test bench where I have instantiated this module, okay, which has the clock, GPIO, and the reset as the interface signal. And then initially I did the reset for 100 time units, and then after that I generate a regular clock. So the first part is done. I have written the test bench and I have integrated with, I have used my this block diagram as a device under test PUT. Now the second thing I need to do is to write the code inside the microblaze, and for that I need to understand the drivers of this IP, the drivers of this IP. So I need to initialize this IP, and I need to see how I can communicate with this IP, because each IP will have a separate address, separate set of drivers. So I'm just going to give you the code here, but we'll discuss this code in the subsequent video. So you can see that for this IP, the drivers definitions are there in the xgpio.h. For this IP, say timer IP, you have the xtmrctr.h. And in that .h file, all the parameters of this IPs and the corresponding driver function definitions are there, and you need to understand how this drivers needs to be used. For example, I need to first do the initialization for the timer IP as well as GPIO IP. Then I need to tell this timer IP that you should work as a auto reload up counter. So I need to set some timer in that IP. Then I need to look at the timer value. I can see what is the current value of the timer, and then I need to start the timer. Once I start the timer, timer will work as a 0, 1 up to 255, back to 0, 1 to 55. Then here you can see that I'm writing some values inside the LED. So you can see that I'm using the corresponding driver function xgpio discrete write. And then similarly, I'm reading the timer content from the value. So I'm doing the write AXI write transaction here. Okay. And I'm doing the AXI read transaction here. So this is what the simple code we have written. And then in the next video, we will see how to associate the ELF file to your microblaze processor, so that when you give the clock to the microblaze processor, your microblaze processor start executing this code. So you can see that you don't need a board. You can do the entire simulation as like you do the Vivado test bench simulation. Now, last thing is that when you follow this Vivado SDK flow, you need to understand how you will communicate with the IP. Okay, so each IP which you will create, you can create a new IP in the HLS. Hopefully, we'll see it in the future video. So each IP has the set of internal registers. Okay, so for example, timer IP, you need to tell the IP that you should do the up counter or you should do the down counter. So there will be some control register will be there, and in that control register you need to write the appropriate bits to 1 or 0 to tell the counter a timer IP how you should perform. Then by default the timer IP is counting, so 8-bit IP is counting from 0 to 255 back to 0. But you don't want like that. Suppose that you want say 127 to 255. So that means when you timer reaches its upper value, it should start again from 127 instead of 0. So there will be an additional register will be there, say load register. So in this load register, you can write the value, and from that value, whenever the timer reaches this 255, this value, the value here, it will be loaded, and the timer start counting from that value. Okay. So then you want to read the current value of the timer. So there will be a register here, say data register or counter register, which shows the current value of the timer. Okay, so you need to give the address. If you want to know the current value of the timer, you need to give the address of this register, and by performing the read transaction, you will get the output. So basically, you need to understand whenever you want to use any IP, you need to understand how to initialize that IP, what are the different registers are there, and what are the how to make use of this register to get the desired functionality. Okay, so for each IP there is a sufficient documentation will be there, and you need to read those documentation and understand how to make use of this IP. Similarly, this IP may have the interrupt also. So how to enable the interrupt, how to disable the interrupt, how to set the interrupt as a age triggered or the level triggered. So all those, for this every IP there will be a set of driver function. You need to understand how to make use of the driver function. You don't need to write the driver function for the IP, but you need to understand how to make use of this driver function. So in the subsequent labs, we'll be working on the how to enable the interrupts, how to make use of the interrupts, and if possible, we can also look at the DMA as well.